Welcome friends to our final video for Unit 1, the business environment, and we're going to look at information management and e-commerce. The reason, and one of the biggest resources that we have, those four major resources, is information. And we have so much information out today. What do we do with it? Well, hopefully it is for reducing risks in a decision-making process. Obviously, the more current and better information we have, hopefully, if we use it correctly, the better we can operate a business and reduce risks as well. There's the right way, the wrong way, my friends, and how do we choose which direction, hopefully the right decision to make. Information, and the better information should be able to reduce the risk of a project, of an idea, of a business not succeeding or going wrong. Now, can we ever reduce risk to zero and make 100% right answer in a dynamic, moving business world? No, you can't. And even if the closer you would get to it, it would be very expensive. You'd have to have a tremendous amount of information, stress, and worry. At some point, you have to weigh what you've got in information and make the decision that feels the best for you. So we use this information, no big surprise here, for planning in the future. We can budget our resources, and most importantly, we always want to use the information, especially the ones that we've just completed, to evaluate our projects. Are we overloaded? Is that what it looks like? Are we constantly wired? It does seem that way. Do we always have your phone? Could you go without your iPhone, your Samsung, whatever, your phone for a day? What would that feel like? It used to feel great back in the 1980s, 1990s, even early aughts. But the phone is so connected, and of course, it's not just a phone. It's your life, it's your contacts, it's all your apps, it's your banking. Many of you may have it to unlock doors if you have all that convergence, and so there's a price to pay for that, isn't it? A very stressful, very wired lifestyle. If we want to look at briefly the internet, and it is a brief existence of time that we're talking about, but what has it done? The internet was designed by the Defense Department of Defense. After World War II, we were in the Cold War, and what if the United States was bombed? What if they bombed Washington or New York? If that was whatever enemy that we thought to be present, and if a bomb did go off and it nailed our central intelligences, we would be lost. We'd have nothing left. So the Department of Defense thought up with engineers how to move information. So they had portals or hubs all over the United States where information, if one area, say New York was bombed, it can be moved to Dallas, it can be moved to Denver, to Florida, to Alaska. The information can be stored in many different servers throughout the United States, and usually those were underground bunkers that could receive that information. So the ironic thing was, it was a very closed network. You had to work for the Department of Defense, be a scientist for that. Now, it is the most open network in the world. 50 years later. 1967 is kind of when the internet became very, very popular in closed networks, that the information could move and travel very, very easily from one site to another. Again, just for national security purposes. So, here we are. Most of this audience has only grown up with the internet. I can tell you there was a time without it. And it really didn't become popular until 1995, and that's when Windows 95 came out, which was all the rage, because finally we had an operating system that was really designed to start using the internet, versus you had to be pretty technical and pretty tech savvy just to figure out ways to get on the internet. And that was the Clinton administration. That was one of their goals, to make the internet accessible, because the Clinton administration realized it's going to be a technology-based workforce in the future, and so that's when it really, really took off. Certainly before COVID-19, it was very popular. 85% of all Americans were on the internet. I think that's up to 95% today, and it certainly has and we'll look at that in a second. What has happened after the year 2020 when we were just forced to do almost everything: work, shop, go to school on the internet. How many hours are you a day wired? Did you ever go on and look at your screen time on your phone? And if you have your iPhone, you can just go to settings and then look at your screen time. And the average screen time is at least 11 to 12 hours a day for the average person. And so if you're above average, you may hit 20 hours. And there's a price for that, my friends. The more we're on our electronics, it does do something to our brains, and it never lets us relax. So think of things you need to do. Stop that. Don't check that phone at night. Don't check that phone right before you go to bed, or that last email or text or video, whatever it is, because your brain really gets wired up. It's going to take a couple hours for it to really rest. We want to get into that deep sleep, which is so important for our health. And the healthier we are, the better person, student, and business professional we're going to be. We talked about the unflat world in the global economy. Well, we can also describe that as the digital divide. There are those underdeveloped countries who lag further and further behind in internet technologies. And we can measure that by gross domestic product. We go back and look what Rwanda did to split that divide and make it united with the one laptop per child, and how their economy has grown, and why the biggest economies are tech economies as well. And so there's some of the things right over here. Has been, is coming, and where are you? Now, instead of talking about big macro events and what countries are doing, what are you doing to increase your tech savviness? And I don't think you have to become a computer science major or an engineering major. And if that is your major, fantastic. I mean, if that's your thing, great. But there's all sorts of things that we can do. And so courses of interest. Obviously, the COSC and the BCIS are those first beginning classes. But what about a beginning web programming? You know, the most popular language in the world is HTML. That's interesting. Most would say, oh, it's got to be Spanish. It could be English. It could be Chinese. It's actually HTML. So if that is the largest language in the world, maybe we should have a little bit of that. Understand just a little bit more of that. And that's ITSC 1411 at a college in Texas. And this is Tarrant County College. ITSC 2402 is intermediate, so you're going to be doing more of JavaScript. We have digital art classes, Photoshop. Again, my friends, as a professional working in a very, very complex world and economy, back in the day, when you had just a programmer, just an artist, just a marketing person, just a this, that's all in one now. So if you're in the business field, do you know how to use Photoshop? Can you always update the web page, all the social media? Do we know anything about Python programming? Do a little bit of data analytics. That's very big data science. GIS, Geographic Information courses. We have a great degree on our Trinity River campus. Any of these courses, again, and even if you don't take that, if you just build your skills on YouTube or Coursera, whatever you can do, don't stop learning in this area, because technology is going to continue to drive the business world, and I think it's going to continue to drive your career field. A few nomenclatures on business. So, an internet, back in the day when we saw a pure play come open, no one thought that would survive. And that is only having an online presence. They just used the internet to completely create a business model. Apple iTunes, eBay, Amazon, Facebook, someone of your social medias now is no big deal. But if you go back to the 90s when Amazon and eBay were taking place and their origins, everyone, and I mean big business consultants, says, no, you got to have a brick and mortar store. You have to do things the old-fashioned way. Build the business, build your customer base, go out there and pound the pavement. That's how you build a business, and that's because that's all we knew. When Amazon showed and eBay showed it can be done, then iTunes came in the year 2000 and blew up and became basically that's what saved Apple. And social media being what it is today, it seems like it's hindsight. It's very easy to see 2020, but that was something brand new. And of course, there was the bricks and clicks. That was online business, brick and mortar retail using the internet to help augment their sales. And you can see right in here, of course, take out Home Depot, but some of these stores right here, how long will they survive even with the brick and mortar, because they're pretty big. We see retailing taking such a different road today, and certainly with the COVID pandemic that we are going to live through for quite some time has done to retailing. Also, some basic nomenclature in the business world. We look at what B2B is. B2B or in B2C. Okay, so B2C is business to consumer. That's a company that basically markets the consumer market. Okay, that's you and I buying all of our items from Amazon, from eBay, from Dillard's, so from grocery stores. That's the business selling to the consumer. And these are great ways to build a career. There's also the second biggest one is the business to business market. And I say biggest one, most common thoughts of markets here. And that is businesses selling to other businesses. So these are supply chains, heavy manufacturers, raw materials. Maybe they're selling the product to a retailer who will then again sell it to the consumer. If you can get into this as your career field, especially if you're in sales, these are really big ticket items. And you can make an excellent career, my friend, especially B2B sales. Yes, it's very stressful, but what's not stressful, and you can pave yourself to a pretty good six-figure income in the B2B market. So there's also business to government and non-governmental agencies, but the two biggest ones are B2C, to the end consumer, and B2B. If we were going to create our own side hustle, our own side business, more than likely be a service business of some type, and it would be into the consumer market, because we're pretty small. You have to be a pretty good sized organization to service the business market itself. At any rate, that gives us a little bit of the things that you see in a daily life. Of course, e-commerce, consumer to consumer market as well. And that's anything what eBay basically started out as. Probably Amazon for a little bit did too. Craig's and Angie list. That's, hey, I want to sell something. Before the internet existed, the C2C world was a garage sale. Okay, you're selling something out of your house, your stuff that you have, and you want to get rid of it. eBay became the largest garage sale in the world, and all of a sudden, hey, this is just a really good way, a platform that we can get any brand new service. And you know, major companies, both on Amazon and eBay, sell directly from their stores. Of course, Craigslist, Angie's List as well. There's something was all the rage in the year 2000, P2P, and that's file sharing. That's allowing users to access other computers and other users. And there was this group called Napster, and they were doing songs. Actually, he was a Harvard dropout, and he could basically figure out a way. He was trying to exchange songs in the dorm room at Harvard. And he said, why are we buying this stuff? I can show you a way. And there wasn't a great venue to even buy anything online music. But once they could rip up a CD and put it on to a digital format and make an MP3 out of it, he figured out easy ways to file share that, which became illegal. And Napster was given $25 million in seed capital, venture capital in the year 2000, because the process of P2P was so powerful that everything Napster did, and let's say they did 25 million songs a month, and that's basically what they were doing. That would take $1 a song. Would take a company $25 million with about 10 million landlines that were with the fastest internet servers going on. It would have taken tremendous amounts of money for one organization to do what Napster was doing in the file sharing of music for basically no dollars at all. So that's a very powerful process, how we could always use somebody else's computer to access and to use that power. And so P2P was supposed to be much bigger than it is today. iTunes did come along at a very strange time, and when that became illegal, Napster, and people were losing their jobs, and iTunes came along for 99 cents a song. It's pretty easy equation to say, hey, I'll pay $1 for my favorite song, get it legitimately, and keep my job than getting fired. And there was organizations that were literally going through employees' hard drives, and they found any type of file sharing software on there, you were fired. The college did the same thing, and so yeah. Very interesting. Mobile commerce, of course, as we look at the e-commerce, this is what rules the world right now. 70% of all Apple revenue comes from their iOS, and they've done that since about the year 2010 to 2012. And Apple being one of the most profitable, if not the most profitable organization in the world. And iOS didn't come out until 2007. So in a very short period of time, mobile commerce drove Apple to outer space as far as the popularity and in their revenues and income. And we know, hey, we love it. Friends, Steve Jobs' idea was for you to always have your computer in your pocket and never turn it off. And that's pretty much a fruition, isn't it? Back in the day, in the 2000, 2001, there was a huge dot-com crash. Everybody rushed to this industry in the 90s. Again, think about 1995 to 2000 when Windows 95 came out, and we saw where this is where the new innovation economy was driving, the internet was driving it. We're talking trillions of dollars were poured into businesses, even if it didn't make any sense. If you said, hey, I'm a startup.com, you could get several million, tens of $1 million in seed capital. And at some point, it just crashed right about 2000, 2001 because nobody was making money. Nobody had a business model, and that's what we're going to go into in our second unit here. A business model is if you opened up a lemonade stand as a child, okay, and said that, okay, going to sell lemonade. I'm going to sell it to people walking by my house or down the street or to a friend, and they're going to pay for my lemonade, and I'm going to give them the product. That's, in a simplest terms, that's what a business model does. It basically says, how are you going to make money? Where are the revenues coming from? Well, in those late to mid 1990s, people were giving all this information away free. There was no ads driven. So you could basically look at free content all day long with never a pop-up ad. And so there was no loyalty. And of course, I think it's the biggest thing. A generation wasn't there. They were asking generations before, usually those baby boomers and those traditionalists, to now start using the internet when they had very loyal connections with people in stores and other businesses. And they said, why? I don't understand the internet to begin with, was their thinking. Why would I want to trust my money? The security was nowhere where it is today, and it's still lacking today, but nothing was a secured line. And there was just no loyalty at all, because those who could do the internet pretty well, those who figured it out, basically said, well, I'm just looking for the lowest price. The internet has done one interesting thing to so many products. It's homogenized several industries. When you go to look for a home today, to buy one, to purchase, or an apartment, you're simply looking for location, and right now you're looking just at square footage and price. You may not care if this is a really nice hills and beautiful parks right next to it, as much as, hey, I know what price I can afford, and it's shown me right here everything I need. So it's really homogenized, where there's the selling points maybe more like a commodity. And so there's not a lot of loyalty in that, especially when we do something like everyday purchases. You're looking for the lowest price and how fast can you get it, providing that the quality is decent. So Zillennials were not there, late millennials, early Zsters, that basically this is all the way we do shopping now. Just a quick little history there. The e-commerce triangle, internet technologies, is what it's going to be built on. These three, these are what most experts have been saying for 20 years. And I think they're right. They pegged this about 15 to 20 years ago in the early aughts. What's going to really drive it? Well, again, the collaboration, innovation, is the technologies that's coming through. And of course, we've seen that. Of course, who survives? You have to have a strong business model. And the business model for e-commerce rests on that. You've got to be able to define that path to profitability. Will it be ad sales? Will it be banner ads? It can't just be click-throughs. And that's what everyone was banking on in the 1990s and early aughts, was that, well, I've got 1 million click-throughs a day. Wow! We thought those were going to be customers. They were just click-throughs. They didn't mean anything, unfortunately. And of course, marketing. That is, we've got to create and satisfy long-term customers. I can't have one sale from you. I have to have a lifetime of sales. And so how do I create that relationship? And the internet is great for creating marketing relationships, especially with all the algorithms that basically can determine who you are, what you will buy next, what you just might be interested in. Even though you don't think you are, you may find an interest based on what an algorithm can build upon you. Of course, the value of enhancement to customers and reducing those operational inefficiencies when it's so quick, when it's very painless to go on Amazon and purchase anything, and you can get it that evening or the next day with an Amazon Prime by just your thumb hitting the checkout. That's a lot of value right there when you don't have to think about it. And now, of course, what we're buying online, from our food, our groceries that can be delivered in the morning, and everything else. So literally, you can buy a car online, have it delivered to you. So that's that, reducing those inefficiencies and reducing all those pain points. That's how the internet has become so strong. Online sales, and this is interesting. Had we taken this class a couple years ago, pre-COVID, and I were to ask you in 2018, what do you think the total e-commerce sales in the United States are? All retailing. And because all retailing is somewhere around $10 trillion, let's say. What percentage would be that online? Most people pick, 50%, 60%. Well, that never has been that way. Even from this last decade, we started out in 2010 at 6%. So 6% of all retail sales were purchased online. And it's gone up just slowly, very incrementally. And of course, maybe the equation may not be great. I've always tried to look at this equation and say, well, our oil and gas prices, fill up with the car, that is a retail sale, isn't it? And so, yeah, I mean, we can't get that done by the internet. If that's included in there, they may have taken that out, trying to get on mainly maybe household consumer goods, and of course your specialty items. This might be more, but total sales. But look what it did when COVID hit. Here's the end of 2019, 16%, which is pretty strong. So it made itself a good double in a decade, a little more, and then it shot up to 27%. Starting in April of 2020. Of course, that was in the major part of the shutdown. I think it's backed off a little bit because, it's just human of us to want to go out to a store and walk around and do a few things. But it's certainly almost doubled from, 2-3 years ago. And again, I think this number we would have probably seen in the year 2030, all things being equal. And as many experts have said, COVID may have pushed us 10 years into the future. And again, we're not even talking about online classes, what we can do online, and what companies that have pivoted, that have improvised, they've overcome, they've adapted to get those products and services to you as fast as they possibly can without you having to leave your home, or at least freeze up our time to do fun things without having to go shopping so much. Now, I know shopping is a holiday, and is an event in the United States culture, but you can see where it's gone. So this was the big push that internet was looking for. So I think it put us, in 8 weeks, it put us 10 years into the future. Interesting to think about. Now, just because we go to a store and buy something still, I'm sure some of us are out there that may do that, it doesn't mean that we don't start our search first. And that's what Google calls ZMOT. That is the zero moment of truth that Google wins. And that is 80% of consumers start with the buying process online. And by the way, as you probably know this, and you probably could have read this up, just thinking, how many of us go to that second Google search, the second page? Why is everyone want to get those? Of course, that's where Google makes their money on those ad searches, that your company or product or service gets that first placement, which you pay for. By the way, it is not a unbiased search, is it? It's very biased. It goes to the highest bidder because 85% of the purchases will happen on that first page. Only 15% go to the second page, and I think it gets down to like 1% go to third, fourth, and fifth page that you keep looking at those Google searches. And of the 85% on that first page, it's the first three that get like 50%. So when you just look at it by the statistics, by the data, your company does everything they can to be in those first three picks because that's where the information, that's where the purchases go on a Google search. Interesting stuff, my friends. Of course, penetration usage, you can see that the United States right now is at a 95% rate. We're at, I believe we have surpassed 4 billion now because of the COVID. I think we're right about 6 billion users. And so that's pretty huge. That's pretty huge where we are. Top sites, again, if we go back, these sites have not really changed so much. Google, YouTube, of course, YouTube is Google. Google owns YouTube. Google's owned by Alphabet. Oh, that's their parent company. Oh, that's what they created it to be. And because they own a online company, Alphabet, that has every letter of the alphabet. That's their claim to fame. And of course, we can just see, where these are, and these are big, big types of social media and informational searches. And that's what ranks it right there. Looking at the internet, the best way to describe it is disruptive technologies. And I think this is something you can look at, my friends. If you can figure out a disruptive technology and what it does, and you can catch it before others can, you can really ride that wave, either investing or choosing that as an organization to work for. Now, Henry Ford was very disruptive, and he said this, hey, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they just said faster horses. Henry Ford being the second person to create the automobile. The first was Mercedes, but that was in Germany, and so he didn't know, and he was first in the United States. And he thought of something very visionary, almost went broke, I don't know how many times. I mean, usually the visionaries put every ounce of passion that they have into it. There's the evolution of the light bulb, and they're the first ones there. And if you can get to if you're the first ones there in the market, you got a great chance of succeeding for a very long time. So when we look at disruptive technology, basically there's some sort of a product improvement in a service that the market never expected to go that way. And if we look at flash memory, hey, we were trying just to get better computing power back in the 90s. We were using floppy disks. And you'll have to Google that up. What's a floppy disk? They held 512 kilobytes of information. Apple came out with the 3¼ inch disk, which was more that little harder disk, and it held up to 1.4 megabytes of information, which at the time was huge. And Jobs didn't like it. He said, "This needs to hold infinite amount of memory." At least that was his vision, and this was as close as they could get to back in 1984. But as the memory came on, it's great for computers. Well, what did it do to the camera industry? I mean, there was a Kodak Instamatic right there. That was the biggest camera for 100 years, basically. And Kodak made tons and tons of money. Well, everything went to digital. By the way, Kodak invented the first digital camera in 1975. They got very scared of it because all their money was coming from film. They gave this little camera away, and their profit margin on the film industry, which they owned a 95% market share, almost 100%, and their profit margins were 92%. That for every dollar, they got 92 cents of profit. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. How wealthy that were. And now, when's the last time you thought of Kodak? They let that disruption that they invented completely engulf them to where they're a shell of a company. Yeah, when 9-year-old kids, and probably younger than that now, are the main users. And of course, the point and shoot cameras that were digital were all the rage until the iPhone is the #1 camera in the world right now. Different, what does it do? The disruption changes the product, more users, different users, lower price points, and it continues to change. And of course, the internet being the most disruptive technology. So if you can figure out what's going to be disruptive in an industry, and I have those articles down there for you on the resource page, what industries never saw this disruption coming and what happened to them. These are organizations, my friends, that were leaders. Kodak owned the photography business for 100 years. Sears and Roebuck owned retailing for 100 years. Blockbuster owned the home video market for 20 straight years of just ginormous profits. And those are companies we don't even think of today in our culture. And maybe some of you never even thought to think or heard about those organizations, and yet they were the biggest. This economy does not take a prisoner, does it? It just keeps moving on, and it just leaves the carnage by the wayside. So we've been asking how long are newspapers and magazines. In 2010, when I started asking this question, and well, here we are 10 years later, barely in existence. They've had those who pivoted very fast to online and trying to get those online subscriptions. They're surviving, but I don't think near as what they were, because they've cut they've cut their payroll and their human resources down to a tenth of what they were. Of course, social media has spawned a whole new way in the last 5 to 6, 7 years that has changed the marketing landscape. The marketing landscape in terms of promotion. When Procter & Gamble basically cut 1,600 sales and marketing jobs, and that was a great company to work for. They're our biggest consumer product company. So you get a great job making at least 70, 80 to 100,000 a year as Procter & Gamble sales, just on the sales force, in favor of digital formats. Disruption, disruption, disruption. As information flows, when did it all start? Pretty much you can go back to history, since the dawn of man, creation. Even if we take a very short 6,000 year history, because we're looking at civilizations. Okay, this is how information flowed. Basically, how fast could you run? How fast could your horse or camel run? Well, now the trains came in, so that got faster. But in 1844, May 24th, Samuel Morse had the first telecommunication message, and he said, "What hath God wrought?" And it was from Baltimore, Maryland to Washington, D.C. And so that came in clear. I mean, I got the code. And if I could make this line straight up from 1990, that's really what it would look like. I just kind of messed around with this just to get a grip. It's just going straight up. And of course, more and more. We are now seeing so much more. 4 billion people, that number has increased. There's so much opportunity still out there in this world because it's growing faster and faster. And there's a little thing on future trends, just how much data. And I put this out there because there is a tremendous amount of data, and you can see this in your PowerPoint. Again, I have the file on our Canvas course. But 0.005% of data is only analyzed. There's a ton of data out there. So if math is your thing, and accounting and data, that's what you really like to do, think about data science then. Think about data analysis, and think about how to really portray that, graph that out. And you can be very valuable because there's a lot of wasted information out there, and it's hard to make sense of sometimes because there's just so much of it. So there is a future trend for you in a future career. Even though it's very popular right now, it's not going away. Internet of Things, that is a great topic for you to think about and discuss. And that is anything and everything connected to the internet. And again, from this decade alone, from 2011, we had about 5 billion devices connected. Not just your phone and your laptop and your tablet or your watch, but your maybe clothes, shoes, beyond cars. Again, anything and everything connected to the internet. I have a set of Ping golf clubs that basically have the system in the grips that can tell you how your swing went, how fast your swing went, and how far your ball went. provided you download the app. So we have golf clubs connected to the internet. It's kind of pricey, the subscription. I went ahead and regripped my clubs because I didn't want to pay the extra $500 a year to have that. But some people will, and that is pretty wild. And will golf balls. Think of anything and everything. And so the need for more power. But the Internet of Things, that would be a good research topic for you to look at as you start guiding your future. And again, looking at investments. And so we're looking at, we know mobile commerce is huge. It is when you can do everything from your phone, very, very cool. But of course, wearables. Now, wearables will drive the Internet of Things because these are all connected to the Internet. That's what the wearable technology looked like in 2000. There I am, okay? And that's not me, but I'll just say it is. If you wanted to move around with the computer, the laptops were pretty bad, and there was no such thing as a tablet. So you just basically hooked everything up with duct tape and a very long extension cord, and that's how you ran. Moore's Law was one of the people who invented the integrated circuit, and he came up with basically every 18 months information will double, means you can double the amount you put on a circuit. I think that's come down to every 6 months now, just to show you how fast Moore's Law is. And so again, the more data we can put on, the more devices, the more power we can put on in very small components. Hey, that's how you can have a Tesla. That's how you can have an all electronic car running as good as anything out there. Of course, growth is going to be huge. That's supposed to be an iPod right there, and it's all wrist activated Bluetooth to your speakers. And again, how your wrist movement is, it's still, I believe, a prototype, but there can be your trackpad and whatever songs or whatever things that you want. And that's what it should look like. Definitely, it's already a $1 trillion market. So wearables, health wearables, monitoring, when doctors can monitor you in ways that of heart versus having to keep you in a hospital in a telemetry ward for a week or so, and they can get all your vital signs. And it's interesting. Many insurance companies are using this on those smartwatches. If you take so many steps a day and you average them per month, so if you average your 2 miles a day in walking, and you may receive discounts in your health insurance. Now, my brother-in-law gets that. Wearable technologies, Internet of Things, devices, convergence technology. We actually do have a degree on Tarrant County College, all of our campuses, how everything in your home, the smart home, will be connected to your phone, where you can shut everything off or turn everything on. Literally anywhere in the world, you can have access to that. And so there's a lot of jobs and technicians in setting up those homes. Of course, look for wearables to be much more fashion statements. Brave, that right there is her phone. And so, interesting. Beauty and design, and of course, all of this is connected to the internet, called micro-personalization. Wow, if you could order your clothes and it knows exactly your fit. You know, we buy our clothes and hope for the best, depending on the brand, if we got the right size. What if it was just completely tailored only for you? That's pretty wild. That's going on. How you wash it, how you clean it is beyond my depth of information, of knowledge, but it's out there, and you know, that may be, there may just be one shirt that you have like that, and it will actually get all your other clothes that you want based on the trial that you use with the one shirt. Maybe that's how they do it. Of course, find these companies, invest in the companies that make the products for the companies. Don't just invest in Apple, which would be great if you can, $1,000. Well, it's come down. They split their stock several times, but it's gaining right back up there. But, you know, who helps build components? You know, that should be your search. Who is doing some of the business-to-business sales in this area? And so, friends, that brings us to the end of this video, which is the end of Unit 1, the business environment. I hope you've enjoyed the videos and they've been able to help you in our learning process. I'm looking very forward to our next unit, which will be entrepreneurship.